What's up, everybody? Thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it, Bohemian Grove. Appreciate all of you in the chat section, all you guys streaming, all you guys listening. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's hit that like button if you can. Before we get to Quintin, I know he's going to be up in a second, but I wanted to throw this at you, Derek. We know the Masters is underway, right?
Yep.
Have you seen how cheap the prices are for like concessions there? No. Unlike most other athletic events where they just gorge you and rob you. Real quick. So you can get a barbecue sandwich for $3, a chicken salad sandwich for $3, a pimento cheese for $1.50, an egg salad sandwich for $1.50, breakfast sandwich for $3, chicken biscuit for $2, Georgia peach ice cream sandwich for $2.50, cookies for $1.50, chips $1.50. You can get a beer for $5, which is crazy. Domestic beer for $5, iced tea for $2, and a soda for $2. That's what the concessions are at the Masters.
Those are like
it's like a time warp.
It's like 1990 prices, dude.
I'm telling you, man. That's unbelievable?
You know what? Ain't nothing like Georgia barbecue, man. You Amen. Get some of that Georgia barbecue, brother.
Amen. You know what? The only thing as good as Georgia barbecue is any kind of cuisine in Boise, Idaho. And just ask our next guest. That is Quintin Mikell, who is joining us right now. Q, what's up, my man? First of all, sweet lid. I like the lid, man. What is the go-to spot in Boise for people who may be visiting at some point?
Oh man, so I'm still relearning everything, right? So my favorite spot here, my favorite burger place here is called Bad Boy Burgers. It's amazing. All right. Burgers are great there. If you want to go to like kind of like a mid, I don't want to say mid, but like take your wife out on a nice lunch or dinner date, go to a place called Bardenay. It's a very, very popular spot here. Very good drinks, very good food. Those are my two favorite spots. There's a new spot called the Lively, which is where me and my wife, it's kind of like upscale and very, very, how do you say? It feels very New Yorkish in there.
Okay.
So that's one of my favorites.
So you liking life out there? You enjoying it?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a different world. It's a little bit slower, more outdoor activities and things like that. But it's been fun, man. It's been a great experience so far. The kids are loving their schools, and my wife, she's a Jersey girl, so she's adjusting a little bit to it. There's some good days and bad days, but she's having a good time, man.
All right.
Let me tell you one thing you're going to have to get used to with your wife being from Jersey and of course being here her whole life. My wife is from Southern California, and I've dragged her all over the country. Especially when it gets close to like certain family gatherings, whether it's a 4th of July or a parent birthday, then the emotional roller coaster, and you try to be as comforting, as understanding as you can, but sometimes you feel guilty for some of the things you've done in terms of dragging your spouse to different places. It gets tough, better. It gets better.
And like for me, I've always moved all around the country. I've always lived in different places. So for me, it's not been a big deal, but I do notice that, and especially right now, it's getting ready to be Easter, and so I'm going through it a little bit right now.
I hear you. All right, Quintin. So we wanted to hit you with a bunch of stuff, and it's always good talking to you, man. Eagles made a couple of moves at the safety spot. They signed Terrell Edmonds, but they're a little thin there, man. I mean, they're counting on Reed Blankenship, who certainly got a lot of touches last year because of some injuries. They still have Kayvon Wallace, but that appears to be a position where they're a little light. What do you think about that group? If it stays that way, very well could change, but if it stays that way going into next year.
Yeah, I do think it's going to change. I do think that, the way that, at least the way that I believe that Coach Desai is going to run his secondary, the safety position. The secondary is going to be a very, very important position. So I do think they're going to address that. I think that Reed stepped in last year and did a phenomenal job as a rookie safety coming in. He exceeded my expectations, and I think that he would be a fine player to step in there and start next year if need be. Terrence Edmonds has shown that he can play at a high level in this league. So I'm not as concerned. I don't think it's a hey, we need to get a first day safety. We need to get a first round, second round safety. But I do think that eventually that position should be addressed. But I think those guys are going to do a fine job at the start of the season and probably throughout.
Q, let me ask you this, because you went through this as a young player, making a transition from the college ranks to the pros. How taxing is it on you emotionally and mentally for a young player? Because, we sit here and you do too on your formats, talking about who they should draft, what position they should go on, who's up, who's down, things like this. How taxing is it for a young player who has to go through that yo-yo from the combine through the draft, of listening to all the outside noise of where you might go? All of a sudden you slid down, so-and-so's jumped ahead of you, and things like that. That's a lot for a 22, 23-year-old to endure, man.
Absolutely. It's a ton. And especially the guys that are there, when you're expected to go in a certain position and you don't go and you start sliding and the camera's in your face. And so there's that part of it. And it's a very, very tough thing. But eventually the best thing and the best feeling at the end of the day, no matter where you get drafted, is getting your name called. And so for those guys, it's going to be tough. It's going to be an emotional roller coaster. But if you get your name called and you're fortunate enough to do that, that kind of takes all of the frustration away. And then after that point, it's like, hey, let's get to work. And, then the real fun and torture begins.
Well, you're a perfect person to ask this, because you were on the 04 team that got there. And then the next, you remember what happened. We all remember what happened the next year. There's a lot going on, man. And some things, look, T.O. not being happy with his contract and the way all that, you can't do anything but with that. But how challenging was that next year when you get that close? You don't quite get over the hump, because the history is not great for teams to go back and have big years the next year.
Yeah, that's one thing I've always talked about, is that even after this last game, it's you try to be positive as a player, right? You try to be positive as a coach. Hey, we're gonna get back together, and we'll get back here next year. But the reality is, when you get to that level, there's so many little small, minute things that helps you get to that point, that when you get there and you don't succeed, it's tough, right? There's so many small ball bounces this way. You get a free agent hot guy here that maybe wouldn't have been available the next year. So there's so many little intricate parts of it that create this perfect balance to where you can get to the chance to win the Super Bowl. And so as we see now, the team will never be the same. And that's one thing where at the end of the season, I was really, really upset, and I was really, really frustrated, because I know what it takes to get back to that level after. I mean, to even get there the first time is hard enough. And then to be able to repeat it the next year, it's almost, I don't want to say impossible, but it's very, very close to impossible. And so I was really more upset at the fact that you were there. They had everything right in their grasp, and just a couple bad plays here and there was a difference. And now everything's changed. So it's really disheartening.
Yeah.
Q, I talk about it a lot in recent months, and staying on that 2005 theme. Outside of T.O. going off the rails, one of the if not the biggest thing that derailed that Eagles team that season was you guys were decimated by injuries, man. It's like every week somebody was falling by the wayside. Take me through your mindset and the team's mindset this season, because every week we were sitting there going, what? Again? Another one? What was that like, man, emotionally going through that season, because the pieces you were counting on weren't there to go to battle with you each week?
Yeah, that year was tough. After the Super Bowl, you usually take off a couple weeks and you kind of get back on the grind. And I think, with Andy Reid, and I think the game has progressed to the point now that we know in that short amount of time, we know so much more about recovery, how to take care of your bodies. Back then they didn't have cryotherapy, they didn't have the medical advances and all of the sports science that they have now, right? So back then it was like, okay, let's get back on our grind. And so and back then, I think Andy's also learned this as well. But back then, it was kind of like an old school mentality. So after we had our little downtime, it was like right back on the grind, right? And it was right back on to OTAs and all that stuff. And then what happens is your body slowly breaks down before you realize it. So by the time you get to training camp, you're already kind of halfway of what you would have been the previous year. And so I think that what everyone's learned, and I think the game is getting better in this, is that they're treating the players. I wouldn't say that we weren't treated right, but we're learning ways to make sure that these kind of things don't happen, where your body is healed and your body is kind of ready to go for the season. I kind of equate it to basketball and the NBA, and I get frustrated with too, but as a player, like, you know, if you want to go see LeBron play and he's on a I forget what do they call it, where
load management,
the load management deal,
Yeah.
right? It's that's started to creep over into the NFL, and it's not as big a deal in the NFL, but I think that's a huge part of which helped LeBron get so much longevity and success in the NBA. And I think that my mentality is kind of moving over to the NFL, and so I think that part of it shouldn't be as big of a deal as it was in the past.
Wait, were you? I'm thinking about this when you brought up the Super Bowl. Were you torn at all? I mean, look, Andy drafted you. You clearly played for the Eagles for a long time. Was there any hesitation, or was it all Eagles all the time?
Yeah, that was a tough one. I wanted the Eagles to win 100%. You know, Andy's already gotten one. he's got a great team, and just for the city and for what it means to that city, and you know, and me knowing that with this team that it was going to be tough to get back there again, I wanted the Eagles to win, and so there was a little bit. I was a little bit happy for him. I sent them a text and told them congratulations, and that part of it was cool, seeing him win again out of all the stuff he's gone through, and you know, how much he's given to the game. So I was proud of him for that. But I also did want the Eagles to win 100%.
Was there a point in the game, the second half in particular, when you said to yourself, "This is not good for the Eagles, man," because they couldn't do anything with Mahomes in that offense in the second half?
Yeah, well, so me and my family actually went down to the game and we were watching it live, and I think the long scramble that he had, it was like 15 yards, like that was like okay, because it was kind of back and forth. I did notice the field was really, really crappy, but the defense was getting after it, the offense was getting after it, and I just felt like that when he got hurt and he went off on the sidelines when Mahomes got hurt, I was like, okay, we got this. And then he comes back in, I'm like, oh no, here we go. And then I see the scramble, and I'm like, where the hell did that come from? Like he looked like he could barely walk, get into the sidelines. And then I saw him do that scramble. I was like, oh boy, it's gonna be a long day. So I think that was probably the turning point, and it really was a turning point for them and for him. It was like after that, he was like, ooh, I'm good to go now. And then you know, it kind of went from there.
Well, let's you look at this offseason so far, and they were able to bring back some vets. I mean, they bring back Bradbury, they restructure Slay, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, some of the older guys end up coming back. How do you think they did generally? If you look at, you know, some of the departures, Hargrave goes, CJ, that whole thing was kind of strange. Yeah, still trying to figure that one out. But what how do you view this thing so far and where they are talent wise?
I think they filled the holes that needed to be filled, and I think you brought back core guys that are important to this team, that are important to the defense, and that are guys that are good locker room guys, and that'll keep this team focused on the end goal. And so I do think that the additions were good. The CJ thing was the only thing that I was a little bit kind of miffed at. But I also he did miss a few games, right? He missed 5 or 6 games in the middle of the season.
Kidney injury,
And the secondary, it wasn't like a glaring hole in the secondary. So I kind of understood that. Yes, when he's in there, he's a playmaker. Yes, when he's in there, he's taking that defense to another level. But at the same time, when he wasn't in there, it wasn't like a glaring hole. Now that was a lot because of that front seven, the defensive line really was so dang good that it didn't really matter. But I think as a GM, when you're looking at all the money that needs to be spread out, and you got Hurts's contract coming up, you got all these things that you have to look at. You have to say, okay, having CJ was kind of a luxury, you know, and it's not something that's really feasible at this point. So I understood that. Could he have helped? Yes, of course. But at this point, I think that they filled the holes with the important pieces that will help this defense continue to, grow and be solid for the future.
Q, we're looking at a defense that could have 5 new components to it. I mean, Blankenship plays sporadically, but he wasn't a regular. And when you're looking at 5 new components that could be added to a starting defense, especially the way they practice or lack thereof in today's football, how long do you think it takes before it really gels as a cohesive unit? Because you don't really see every team now doesn't want to play their frontline players in these preseason games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be important, especially in the OTAs, to get everybody to gel together. Now, I think the key part is that there's a new GM. And there's a new defensive coordinator, right? So everyone's learning, everyone's new, everyone's picking everything up together. So it's almost like a reset for the entire defense. So the things that happened last year, the things that they learned last year, they're going to have to get in the room together, and they're going to spend some extra time together, especially those secondary guys, and start to understand, hey, how are you going to play this? How are you going to do this? If I rock and roll if I rock and roll the safeties left and right, I know that's kind of out there, but they're going to have to get together and spend some extra time. So I don't think it's going to be a huge deal because they're all kind of relearning and learning a new defense together. And so to me, I don't think that's as big of an issue as it would have been last year.
Oh, okay.
That's good to know. That's good.
They're all going to be on the same page.
Yeah, I mean, principle wise, Desai and Gannon seem to be pretty close. I know Desai will put his own wrinkles on things and twists, but they seem to fundamentally have the same sort of thought process, which I know fans don't always love because you're not super aggressive every second. But isn't that kind of the way the league's going, where you're not just sending guys it's not back in the day like it used to be with Jim. Jim was more aggressive, better than anybody, but it seems like they kind of scaled things back a little bit, and it's about not giving up the big play.
Well, I'll tell you this: the last year's Super Bowl winner, Spagnuolo, was aggressive.
He was,
right? He's Jim Johnson's defense, right?
Mm-hmm.
They came after it, and so there's something to be said for not necessarily just blitzing all willy nilly, but there's something also to be said with. There's times where you have to come after them, and what I saw, and I hate going back to rehash the game, but what I saw was in times where the secondary and the defensive, really last year, when the defense needed a play, when they needed the chance to get some pressure or call a different coverage, change up the look, it wasn't there because they hadn't practiced it all season. And so for me, it was like when I'm watching the Chiefs defense with the secondary with guys that hadn't been playing a whole lot, right? I think there was 2 rookies in that secondary in that game.
Yep.
They were executing everything to the T, right? And so to me, I do like Desai. I think he's going to do a fine job. I think he's a better defensive coordinator than Gannon. And I think that he's going to do some things in the secondary wise too, because you can be aggressive without necessarily blitzing and going zero all the time, right? You can press your guys, you can move them around, you can change looks. And so to me, that's more important in today's game than just going out and say, hey, we're just going to send everybody and pray for a victory. So I think that you still have to be able to blitz. You still have to come up with some good schemes. You still have to get after it, but you have to be smart about it. And, I don't want to get into that part.
So you weren't happy. You weren't a Gannon fan. I could tell.
Yeah, I just.
Thank you, Q, because they used to get on me because I was not a big Gannon fan.
See, I defended him, Quintin, in this sense. Like, they took the ball away. They got a lot of sacks. He didn't give up a ton of big plays. Yes, there are moments I would have liked more aggression too, and I didn't like the way the Super Bowl went. Granted, I did not like that, but. Yes. Derek and I used to go back and forth a lot.
We was back. Oh my goodness.
So here's my viewpoint on Gannon. This will probably be the last. I hope this is the last time I talk about him because I like the guy. I think he's good. I think he's a good motivator. I do think that he can get guys to play for him. But to me, at times, what it looked like was a guy that knew that he wanted to be a head coach and he didn't want to mess up his opportunities by looking bad. With the defense. So he played it safe. They had the best that defense was stacked last year.
Yeah.
And he said, you know what? I'm not going to get in the way. I'm not going to mess things up. I'm going to make sure that this is going to give me the best opportunity for my next step. And so like that was my issue. And then it came to a head when the defense, when we're needing you, the Eagles offense are needing you to make a play to get off the field or get a turnover. And it doesn't happen. And not only that, but we have 2 blown coverages out of nowhere because we're calling a defense that we didn't call all year. So that was my frustration with it.
Okay.
You think when you look at the way the game has evolved now from the time you played to now, do you think you would have been a more impactful player in today's game, or do you think that you came along right when you should have?
Yeah, I think I came along right when I should have because you can't even hit these guys nowadays. It's a different world. And part of my game, I wasn't a ball hog. I dropped interceptions left and right. But part of my game was I played smart. I played with quickness. I could cover. And I was a pretty good physical player for my size. And so I think that in today's game, It's more spread. It's more, individual, hey, one-on-one routes. They isolate guys, especially on those linebackers and those safeties inside. And so, I can't imagine trying to guard Travis Kelce all game there. I'd have been called timeout every play. Like, hey, this ain't right, coach. Let's audible, man. Let's get out of this.
Quintin, we've already used 3. All right, timeout anyway. Oh, my God. I wanted to just a real quick jump on the offensive side here. We're sort of in limbo right now with if there's going to be a contract extension. I think we all think there is, but with Jalen Hurts, just your impressions from a guy who, if you're looking at it, putting yourself in the defense's shoes, kind of like you were just doing right now against Jalen. What does he bring to the table? What challenges does he present to a defense?
I mean, physically, I hate starting off with physically because I feel like everyone always starts, and especially with African-American quarterbacks, it's like the first thing, they say is, oh, he can run. But, physically, he's he's strong, he's intelligent, he's very intelligent. I think he's a great leader, phenomenal leader, and he can beat you with the weapons that he has. He can beat you in multiple ways, and in a lot of ways, except for one bad play in that Super Bowl, he took over the game. He was a huge part of why the Eagles were even in that game. And he everything is the intangibles, it's the leadership, it's the and the accuracy that he's been working on with his throws, it's the deep ball throws. He can make every throw. I mean, the guy's he's just a phenomenal player. And if I was having to play against him, it would be a long day. I mean, he's like the modern version of Randall Cunningham, someone like that, like just a guy that's big, strong, physical, can run with anyone, can get the ball down the field, athletic, smart, good leader. Guys follow him. Like, he has the whole package. And so, he's a phenomenal player. I'm glad the Eagles drafted him because I wasn't sure at first, but just seeing him over the last couple of years, he's been phenomenal.
Do you think we'll ever get past the general perspective of the black quarterback just being a great athlete and saying, he's a good quarterback? Because we still hear too much of this, oh, he's a great athlete playing quarterback. Why can't he just be a great quarterback? You think we'll ever get past that?
I don't know. And I talk to a lot of people about this, a lot of my friends all the time. When you watch the highlights, especially on ESPN, the next time you see a black quarterback, you see highlights, it's always the first highlight, no matter what it is them running the ball. It's them, even if it's a drop back pass and the play breaks down and they have to make a play and they take off and run. Every single time you see a black quarterback on the highlights on ESPN, the first thing they do is running. And so I think it's been kind of in the media, kind of conditioned to, we've been conditioned to say, okay, he can drop back, but he can throw. Like, it's like we're being conditioned to believe that. And I do think eventually that's going to change. I think it's going to take time. I think it's slowly starting to change. But it's really frustrating because there's some phenomenal drop back quarterbacks that can get it in this league. And they can run when they have to. So we'll see.
Yeah, even just look at this year, right? I mean, the guys coming out I'm talking about, your top 3 of the top 4 African-American quarterbacks. I mean, Stroud, Young, and Richardson. And they all bring different things to the table. Stroud's not a runner by any stretch. He's a thrower, right? And I wouldn't call Bryce Young a runner, really. Not to say they can't get out of trouble or whatever, but it's not what they are,
Yeah.
So hopefully we get away from that stuff. I'm not saying we are there yet, but
I think it's changing. It's starting to change, and that's what it has to do with, as African American quarterbacks, we have to start showing on the field, like, yes, we can do. It's nothing wrong with being able to run. It's nothing wrong with being able to throw. It's kind of the mentality that has to change of a guy that is a possible runner, right? The coachings, the media. What can you do in the drop back pass is like the questions and the things that we need to start seeing these guys do on TV.
Yeah, no question.
Sorry,
Quintin, man, it was great. It was great catching up with you, man.
Hey, wait, I got to ask him a quick question because I was teasing him about this before we got. Q, what is it with former football players, man, that drive people nuts? You tell them, hey, can we get you on shows and stuff like that? Oh yeah, no problem. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't know you meant this time. I thought you meant this time. And I was teasing him about this, but we're going back and forth. Give me your perception. What is it about football players that drive people nuts that are trying to pin them down for things?
Well, first of all, I can tell you now because I'm on the other side, but the first thing we do is we learn that the media, you guys aren't always, we got to be careful with you guys.
Are you trying to
sometimes.
say we shady?
Well, you're us guys now.
Yeah, you
us
ain't
guys.
them anymore.
Yes. No, you guys.
Right? So, we guarded a little bit. But no, honestly, I just be in my own world, man. Sometimes, like, when I got the call, when Barrett asked me earlier, he was like 12:30. I was like, yeah, okay. And then I started thinking, I'm like, does he know that I live out here now? So it didn't
thought you were
dawn
still
on
in
me,
Jersey.
He didn't know.
You were still in Jersey. Yeah.
I'm in my own world half the time. My wife she's probably so sick of me by now.
All right. Well,
That's
tell
awesome,
everybody
man.
you can follow Quintin at QMikell27. And anything else you want to promote, Quintin, that we can let folks know about?
No, that's about it.
Okay.
Having a good time. Me and Jason, we do our show
Jason
on Inside the Birds podcast.
Yeah.
Q&A is a show. Not sure when we're going to get back going on that. We're taking a little bit of a hiatus and enjoying our time, not knowing what time we're in. but yeah, that's about it, man.
Right.
I'm just enjoying life.
Love it, man. All right. Appreciate you taking a couple minutes with us.
Yeah.
Thanks,
guys.
All right.
Be good, man.
Take care. That is Quintin Mikell. Yeah. I always tell, I always tell Barrett, I'm like, when you're booking a guest,
Yes,
you got to say 12:30
Yes.
Eastern. And it helps if you even go as far as to say, 10:30 your time, whatever. I think Quintin's in Mountain Time. Is that what Boise is?
Yeah, he's on
whatever.
Mountain Time. Yep.
Yeah. So it's because look, they're not, and I don't even blame the players. Just like, yeah, all right, man, I'm good at 12:30. Yeah, good. You just don't equate that, man. You don't put that together. So I get it.
I learned a long time ago. First thing I ask a player or a former player is, "Hey, where are you?" That's the first thing I need. That's the first thing I ask. "Hey, where are you?"
Right.
I'm out here in California. Okay, look, here's what we want to know. Can you do this East Coast time? And then some of them will say, "Well, what time is that where I am?" What do you mean? What time is that where you are? You're 2 hours, you're 3 hours behind me. So that means 9 o'clock your time if we say noon our time.
Yeah.
And then it goes, okay, I can do it. I can't do it then. But okay, what if we move it up an hour? Can you do it at 11 your time, 2 hour time? Right. Oh, yeah, that's a little bit more feasible. So, yeah. So it's.
Anyway. Yeah, we made it happen. We do a little juggling, but we made it happen. That's for sure. And always good catching up with Quintin. All right. We're going to come back, Derek. We're going to hit a bunch of different things, including best athletes turned actor. All right. We will get into that when we come back. I have an on this date for you. I have birthdays, got movies, got all kinds of stuff. So don't go anywhere. That's Derek. I'm Rob. We're Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. Let's talk Razer technology. Razer technology, in particular, identity management. With cyber threats like ransomware on a seemingly endless uptick and the risk of a breach or data loss higher than ever, the need to know just who is accessing your network systems and applications is mission critical. Identity management for Razer technology is a holistic framework of policies and technologies that lock down access to the right users for only the right reasons. They deploy cutting-edge solutions that identify, authenticate, and monitor access across your entire IT system. Razer technology determines how users gain an identity in your system, what roles they need to fill, and enforces access controls with network protocols, digital certificates, behavioral analysis, and secure authentication methods. Talk to Razer Technology today to learn how to identify management that can reduce the risk of data breach while avoiding costly errors and downtime due to a lack of access. Contact Razer Technology today at 866-797-3282, 866-797-3282, or visit them online at razor-tech.com. That's razor-tech.com.